Hello, today we're going to talk about some of the physical aspects of public speaking. And what I mean by that is the way that our body moves and the things that we should be doing while we are giving a speech. So first of all, it needs to be natural, all right? So the way that we stand needs to be natural. Some people stand like this. However, that is not the way that most people, when they're just standing around, are going to stand. It's more militaristic, I would say, and so it's not just a natural way of standing. Another way of standing, most people don't stand with their arms down to their side, all stiff. Most of the time, when we're just standing around, we have our hands in front of us a little bit, maybe folded around each other like this, or even with our fingers intertwined, but it's going to be more natural that way. All right. We also need to make sure that the gestures that we make are natural. And what I mean by that is if you're talking about something that is important, maybe you'll raise your hand up here. If you're saying something is really important, you're not really going to like push it off to the side or squish it down. You're going to lift it up because it's important. Or in the same kind of case, if you say, I have a big thought, and you're holding your hands like this, that's not very big. A more natural gesture for saying that something is a big idea or a big thought is to go like this. I have a big idea for you. And it'll only take a little time to communicate it. Does that make sense? How our gestures need to be natural. The big thing too that we need to remember is we need to stop gesturing sometimes. When we give a speech, if our hands are moving too much, then the people start focusing on your hands rather than on what the words are coming out of your mouth. It's also exhausting as a listener because you're trying to process all of the gestures and the words at the same time, and that can be very difficult for a listener. So just like sometimes I stop moving my hands, have them clasped here in front of me, it also gives your audience, their eyes, a bit of a rest, okay? So another thing that we need to avoid is if you have pockets, don't put your hands in your pockets. It looks a little lazy and sloppy and casual, and most of the time when you are speaking, you want to appear to have authority. And so putting your hands in your pocket can be, I would say, it can come across as lazy or too relaxed. Another thing that you don't want to do is either cross your arms while you're talking, at least keep them crossed, because then you just look angry. Even if you're smiling, people get very confused. Or putting your hands on your hips makes you feel like you're being lectured, yelled at or something, like you're in trouble. So your best case scenario, the best thing that you can do is to put your hands in front of you and just lightly fold them, kind of like this, or interlock your fingers. It's a very natural way, plus it opens you up to easily do gestures. Okay, now there are 4 different kinds of gestures that you can use. So number 1 is descriptive. All right, so descriptive gestures are the big and small. I would say they're from here to there kind of gestures, or even first or one thing, 2 things, third. So those are the kind of gestures that are descriptive. They're describing either how big something is, how something is moving, how many something is. And then number 2 is called emphatic. And what that really means is emotional. All right, so this can be, if you were telling a story, sorry, about somebody who is angry, you're not going to be laughing and be like, he was so angry. No, you're gonna say, he was angry and clench your hands in a fist, or they were so sad. And so you make your face sad. It helps your audience to relate to that emotion as well as to the words coming out of your mouth. The third type of gesture is called a suggestion. And this gesture is when you're asking your audience to do something and you demonstrate it. All right? Or I'm sorry, no, that's the wrong one. A suggestion or a mood is trying to convey something like welcome. So in other words, if you are starting a meeting, you can say welcome to whatever meeting that you're having. Things like that. If you want them to really stop and think about something, this is a stop gesture. All right? And so that can really be effective during a persuasive speech. Okay? So those are the suggestion ones. And then 4, which is what I was reading for the last one, is prompting. Okay? So prompting is when you're asking the audience to do something. So in other words, if you ask your audience, how many of you have been outside of the country you were born in? See, I raised my hand. I'm encouraging them to raise their hand if they have done what I'm asking. Another thing you can do is say, all right, we've been sitting down for a little bit, so I want everybody to stand up and jog in place for a second. So see how I jogged in place as well? It's doing an action in order to get your audience to do an action back. Okay? So once again, the 4 kinds of, here I'm going to erase that little bit there. The 4 kinds of gestures are descriptive, emphatic emotional, suggestion, and prompting.